Hello and welcome to the third episode of the CDI Talks. My name is Anton Shekhovtsov and I'm the director of Center for Democratic Integrity, a non-for-profit organization based in Austria and aiming to analyze attempts of authoritarian regimes to influence politics and societies in Europe. Our guest today is Jessikka Aro, an award-winning Finnish investigative journalist and the author of the book Putin's Trolls, with the subtitle True Stories from the Frontlines of the Russian Information Warfare. The book was translated into several languages and the English translation should appear later this year. Jessikka's book is not only about Putin's trolls as such, it's also a very personal account of Jessikka surviving perhaps the most brutal attack on the part of pro-Kremlin trolls and Kremlin trolls in the history of Finnish social media. Hello, Jessikka, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Hi, Anton. Thank you so much for having me here. It's such an honor.
Jessikka, my first question is about the very origin of the entire story. When did you start your research and what prompted you to start investigating Putin's trolls?
Already back in 2014, when I noticed the new phenomenon of Russian information warfare, the so-called troll factory. And the super brave Russian independent journalists had been the ones who actually first already exposed it in 2013. So I wanted to kind of continue their work, and I was specifically interested to find out, do these social media propaganda terrorists, can they actually impact real people? Or can actually international audience recognize them as trolls or paid propagandists? Because I consider this troll factory as a threat to freedom of speech. So I started to investigate it, and I did it in cooperation with the audience. I published a crowdsourcing article in which I asked people to look into the topic with me. And by the way, if you remember back in 2014, such a concept or a word like Russia troll or Russian troll, it didn't so much exist. It wasn't like in wide use. So I also wanted to introduce this new concept to people.
I see. And was it connected to the coverage of the Ukrainian story, of the Russian-Ukrainian war, or was it something very specifically Finnish?
It was partly definitely connected to the situation in Ukraine, which I had been following and reporting as foreign news reporter from Helsinki, as it unraveled throughout 2014. So what I had noticed was similar, which I had noticed already back in 2008 in Russia-Georgian war. There was massive amount of propaganda being spread. It was so difficult as a journalist to find out what is actually going on in Ukraine. Who is it that is attacking, and who are these so-called separatists, and who are these soldiers without insignia? What's happening? So even me, who is supposed to be an expert in gathering and compiling, processing information, and whose job it is to tell what's truth actually happening in Ukraine, it was so difficult. So, but at the same time, we had the troll factory even making more of a mess online, and there were so many Ukrainian-related conspiracy theories and fake news stories being spread that I realized that this was really something that is somehow connected to the war waged by Russia in Ukraine. So what I actually then found out later on was in fact so many fake stories about Ukraine, specifically spread by Russian trolls.
You see, it's very ironic that actually in those so-called republics, separatist republics in eastern Ukraine, occupied by the Russian forces, there was a person who is, I think, a complete opposite to you, and who was running the separatist media channel. When was the earliest time that you encountered him?
You must mean Janus Putkonen, right? Yes. So the earliest had been sometimes prior 2014, because he had run pro-Kremlin pro-conspiracy theory fake news site in Finnish before he went actually to East Ukraine to really combat in Kremlin's information warfare. And he had actually told it publicly in a local newspaper that he's conducting information warfare pro-Kremlin. So he had been kind of this, everyone knows him because he comes from this actually actor family. And he has been running like summer theaters and directing them. But then all of a sudden he found his new calling, battling for Russian information warfare. And by the way, he has also burned his military passport publicly, his Finnish military passport. So yeah, so he has, of course, paid attention, unfortunately, to me and to my work, and has done many field pieces about me. And nowadays, he's also promoting QAnon kind of theories on YouTube.
I see. Do you feel that at some point your narrative, your story, had to compete with his? Is he significant in Finland? Does he have any impact in your country?
Back then, he had quite a big following in the Finnish conspiracy site called Verkkomedia, and he did participate in attacking me in the very beginning after my first article was published, and he did manage to impact some of his audience's ideas about me and about my work. For example, they published a story in which they claimed that my article had caused a wave of complaints to the parliamentary ombudsman, and thus painting the image that I'm doing something that is criminal with my article. But at that time, he was too busy with his new work and starting his new work in Donetsk. So he couldn't pay so much attention in me, but there were others who could pay more attention, unfortunately.
See, also the question is, why Finland? Why you? I know that you, in your book, you also tell stories of other people who survived severe attacks conducted by pro-Kremlin activists, but not in every country. Investigative journalists and academics become targets of orchestrated hate campaigns. So, why Finland? Why you? I think the easy answer, obviously, why you is because you did excellent work, and of course, it attracted attention. But do you feel that Finland and the place actually also plays some role in this entire story?
That's what I have been thinking about so much, because we have so many, so prominent international pro-Kremlin activists who are actually doing it on an industrial scale. One of them is, in fact, working for the Kremlin, or at least he was working for the Kremlin 2014 and at least 2017. And he probably still is working there, but he has just erased all the information from publicity. So, yes, for some reason, we have a dense population of these high-profile international influence agents, and who are also well connected with each other. So I've been thinking maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's our close proximity to Russia. We have a lot of people who go to Russia, who visit there, who might become recruited on their trips there too. So it might be that. But yeah, so also I would like to point out that the worst attacks did not come from Janus Putkonen, but in fact they came from such a guy who's Finnish national, but who did work for the Kremlin's think tank called Russian Institute of Strategic Studies, which is run by Russian security services and intelligence service officers who are actually appointed by Putin himself. Maybe you know this, Rissi, probably you know it very well. So one of these Finnish activists who works there, called Juha Beckman, he started to put out false stories about me in Russian language, and there was a string of those stories, 10 stories in which I was being framed as famous assistant of NATO and American, Baltic special services, and also that I am compiling an illegal database of Putin supporters in Finland and sending it to United States, thus committing crimes. And the really nasty thing was that when these were being put in publicity, people started approaching me, because this is what I actually found out. Also in my previous investigations concerning the jihadist recruitment on social media, what they really do and what they really aim at doing is to mobilize the audience, the target audience, and to mobilize it into different type of activity. And in this case, these Russian troll activists, they mobilize people into sending hate mail and hate messages and to threaten me. And this same activity continued and has been repeated so many times in similar form. So just so many fake news stories have been spread about me, and so many of my own compatriots have also been turned against me. So it's just so crazy and brainwashing, and also so dangerous. And even my own former friends have been turned into enemies and haters, and they have sent me death threats. It's beyond crazy.
This of course is extremely tragic, and I can't really imagine how it actually felt for you. I also have a theory. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the extent to which this hate campaign and harassment campaign went to, I think the main reason why it became so massive is because probably Jochen Beckman, who was at the roots of this campaign, he is not an anonymous troll. Yeah, he's a person with some name, with some notoriety among the Finns, and I guess because he also had this name and some position, many people felt that probably it's legitimate. It is okay to do the same as he did. I think maybe that can explain. But also, I know that there is a criminal case opened against him. Can you please also tell this story?
Yes, of course. And about this theory of yours, it's exactly like that. There are many different layers in these influence operations, which are partly conducted online. And one of the layers is real people with real names, with real jobs, with real visibility and following on, for example, on social media, such as Johan Beckman has. But like you mentioned, he is very prominent, so-called expert in many issues, and he has access to all Russian state medias, and he goes traveling to Syria to meet Bashar al-Assad with Russian delegation. He has conducted so many nasty operations for example, in Estonia, in Moldova. He has been declared persona non grata because of his international influence operations working for the Kremlin. So this social media harassment and mobilizing the next layer of this influence operation is actually the kind of passers-by online who are reading these articles and who become impacted by them. And then some of those people also want to act on them. And usually it even works. You can see this also same phenomenon in any type of for example, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, hate speech, fake news. There is always the factor of building fear and hatred, building this like enemy image of something so disgusting and nasty that needs to be attacked. And it's actually quite well designed because according to brain science and neuroscience, fear is the very feeling that makes people act. And this also explains why people then spread these anti-immigrant, xenophobic, racist fake news stories on social media. So that's why they use such demonizing language and enemy pictures. But yeah, so the original question was about Johan Beckman and criminal cases. So while they are still ongoing, the kind of jury is still out there to decide whether he should be convicted of stalking of me or not. So it's in the Supreme Court, and it's due to the fact that he didn't just spread fake information about me, but he also repeatedly contacted me directly as well as on Twitter. So he demanded to meet me. He demanded to meet me in private, as secret. If I accepted to meet him, then he said that he would tone down the social media writing about me. So he was basically blackmailing me. Then he invited me to Crimea, to Moscow, to St. Petersburg, to this far-right forum, because he was everywhere handling them. And he wanted me to, he thought that he could maybe make an ally out of me. So he tried to lure me in a really bad position. And that's why I just took screen captures of his messages and gave them to the police. So basically he has been convicted of libel, as well as then agitating another person to spread libels about me, because he, in fact, this is also quite interesting as a revelation of like how do these operate, these influence people. So this guy who works for the Kremlin actually wrote filth pieces about me using another person's name under the filth articles. But police found out that it was really him because they did searches on computers and such. So this is also kind of trolling, if you may. But yeah, so the cases are ongoing, and then there are other court cases. Some of them are still pending against other people, and some of them are still are already resolved.
But as far as I understand, the entire process or processes, they are in generally favorable to you. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, you can say that. Sometimes the courts still have difficulties understanding that online sphere is an actual sphere and environment, and what happens there can be even worse than what happens in physical sphere. And they also don't understand the power of state-sponsored hate campaigns. So there are still, for example, I tried to apply a restraining order against 2 harassers who follow me everywhere and who live stream everything that I do and who conduct hate speech and who follow me to trials and sit behind me and also try to defame me all the time. So impossible. I tried 2 different court levels, but it's impossible to get a restraining order online on virtual space. And I think this is really the topic that really needs an update in many European countries, because this is an ongoing problem and so many people are facing it all the time, just for different reasons, like from crazy exes and stuff. But
In May 2016, you published an article warning of the use of trolls, bots, and fake social media by Putin's regime to interfere in Western democracies. And later that year, in the run-up to the US presidential elections, we became witnesses of how you and your colleagues were right all along. What are other prominent cases? Apart from the interference in the 2016 presidential elections in the US, what other prominent cases of the Kremlin's interference in Western democracies using trolls and bots?
Oh, there are so many. I need to first and foremost underline the grave operations that the Kremlin is conducting against basically everyone, and also against their own citizens, using lies and conspiracy theories that are endangering health. So these are theories connected to coronavirus and COVID-19 disease. And Kremlin started it so quickly, spreading theories that it's by American security services who have created this disease, and that actually does not exist even, and that it's some kind of biological weapon by NATO, and it's a weapon that is used against China and Russia. So these crazy theories, and they have been sharing this material also internationally in RT, and from there it takes couple of days or weeks so that they become in more laundered versions to these more local fake news sites, and as well as proxy sites. So now, and also, by the way, this coronavirus situation wasn't the only time. They had already started their troll campaigning and bot campaigning against vaccinations in general, especially in United States. I think that was it was covered by scientists 2019 in America. But also these trolls have attacked so many different countries, political elections and political campaigns. Let's mention, for example, Britain's exit from European Union. The trolls were promoting that. The trolls were also have been promoting far-right candidates in so many different countries. For example, in Germany, Marine Le Pen has been the favorite in France, as well as, of course, AfD in Germany. So, and of course, the very recent findings by American security services also showed that the Russian troll factory, one of their architects, have also conducted operations in South Sudan and elsewhere in Africa. So I'm actually terrified of everything that we yet don't know that the trolls are up to, because it often goes so that we only learn about them when the operations have been already ended and already done their impact. So it's almost always so difficult to expose them as they are ongoing, because they are also what these trolls do in cooperation with Russian spies, as for example the Mueller report shows, is that they target these operations to so small target groups that it's so different for an outsider to see, because we do not belong into these target groups, but our friends might belong. So we don't see what's happening in their social media feed. So that's what makes it really tricky as well.
While talking about successes and failures, here's a question. As you're well aware, the Finnish edition of Sputnik, the Russian state-controlled media channel website, was closed, along with the other Scandinavian editions. Is this the proof that the Finnish edition of Sputnik was, basically had failed to have impacts on the Finnish society?
That's like the fantasy thought. We would all want to think like that, but I think that the Russians realized that they need a different kind of technique, that this technique just isn't fit to Finland. So in one way, you're right. But what did happen quite soon or nearby the timing when Sputnik was closed in Finland, a new website was created, indeed, in Finnish language called What the Fuck Paper. So, and what this What the Fuck Paper published, and actually still does, among with racist hate mongering against immigrants and far-right policy promotion, but they also, and by doing this, they're really the only media that does this in Finland. They translate Russia Today stories into Finnish language, as well as put out rapidly videos. And they have even sometimes translated Russian Troll Factory real fun stories in Finnish. So this is kind of like, you need this new context when you cannot just feed us the basic Russian Sputnik stupid propaganda, but then when you feed part of the population this more interesting and more not so evident Russian propaganda, then you actually might get successful. And this is what we're seeing in Finland. And this is also one of the reasons why I was so heavily attacked after I continued my investigations, was that I named this website as the spreader of Russia's policymakers' views and one of the troll sites. So this site then started to attack me.
Well, we are now in the year 2021. You started your research into the troll factories in 2014. So what changed in Finland with regard to implementing measures against authoritarian propaganda and disinformation on the one hand, but also on protecting journalists and experts from online harassment and bullying on the other?
Excellent question. And this question should be so much asked also from so many other countries like USA and so many European countries. But how Finland changed? Actually, for some reason, Finland was super active, even on the official level, already back in 2014. So, for example, our then Prime Minister's office's communications chief was very active in this and actually gave interviews about this topic, as well as trained officials to recognize and counter these operations. In addition, this is an excellent concept that was built in Finland. The media organizations, such as the Union of Journalists, in cooperation with media houses who actually employ journalists, they built up a foundation that helps journalists who become targets financially, not just, vaguely, giving like holding your hand, even though that's important too, but not just that, but they're actually funding these legal battles, as well as if someone needs psychotherapy or if someone needs to move away from their home, so they are there to help. So I think that is something so brilliant that should really be copied in many countries, and not just for journalists, but also for other professionals who become targets. Because just like my book shows, so many other professionals are also put on the spotlight after they voice out concern or information about Russia's information warfare. So then all of a sudden they start to have like Russian security services all over their phone lines. And so there's still so much to be done.
And in conclusion, I'd like to ask you, what's your current work, if it's not a secret?
My current work, I am actually investigating new, I cannot tell publicly actually, but I'm investigating a Russia-Ukrainian information warfare related topic for Yle, the Finnish broadcasting company, my employer. And I'm also, during my free time, I am editing my English book, Putin's Trolls, which you mentioned in the beginning. So, but next I will be working on a book about conspiracy theories in general. I just find them so fascinating and so dangerous as well.
I cannot agree more with you on this, Jessikka. And thank you very much for this conversation. I wish you all the best with your investigative reporting, with your future work, and also with your legal cases against the people behind the hate campaign against you. And I really want at some point in the future to talk to you again. I also want to thank our audience and remind you that you may want to subscribe to our channel to receive notifications when we upload new episodes of the CDI Talks. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much.